Welcome everyone to another Kleros community call. This is 23rd of July 2025. Well, I mean, guess last weeks we have been different members of the team have been returning to work after the Cannes conference. I think we will soon publish a little blog post explaining about how it went. We had, as I mentioned before, a few talks. I spoke about Kleros and the use of AI for, well, this better mechanism design and how we are experimenting with AI agents as jurors in Kleros. William presented about his research on social choice theory, and Clement about prediction markets and future key. So now everyone is coming back. We are going back to business as usual. And for me, this week has been mostly devoted to work on Kleros Enterprise. As you know, Kleros has two big units, we could say. One of them is a distributed solution for the Web3 ecosystem. And then there is another one that seeks to give services to more like corporate enterprise customers. And this week we have been working a lot on that, especially in doing like some strategic thinking exercises and ideas on what are the most likely companies that would adopt Kleros. We have like three main segments that we want to address with enterprise, at least to begin with. One of them is fintechs and neobanks, companies that have customers like centralized exchanges, for example, banks, potentially like Revolut. So that is one of the big segments, in particular in Latin America, where we have already a big network, and where this is already being used, for example, by Lemon in Argentina and in Peru, where they use Kleros to resolve disputes with their users. That is one big segment. Another big segment is insurance, and also, as you know, Kleros is now doing a pilot with an important company called MetLife. This is mostly for car insurance and personal injuries, and we are testing how you can use Kleros in order to resolve disputes where the policyholder has a claim with the company and the company thinks that this should not be paid, and there is a dispute there, and this typically goes to court, and Kleros can be a way to reduce the amount of cases that end up in going to court. And this working can reduce first legal fees paid by the company, and the second also reduce the reputational risk that the company has to face because of customers, policyholders being angry and posting on Twitter and all that. So as I said, so we are studying how we can better identify those companies that could be interested in using Kleros. And our thesis is mostly based on two, it's like a matrix with 4 quadrants and 2 axes. So one axis is the compliance axis. So for some jurisdictions, some countries require companies to adopt some standards of customer service in terms of how fast they respond to users having claim, in terms of the satisfaction standards that users have when having to deal with the customer service of the company. And the other axis is about user interest in having transparent process, in the sense that customers trusting more companies that offer, even if it's not legally required, companies that offer them a more transparent system for dispute resolution. And this is Kleros, as it's an external system, it's not controlled by the company, and then customers who tend to trust those companies more and then go to that. So this defines like 4 quadrants. One of them is low, in the sense that there's low pressure for compliance and low requirements from customers. So this is not very likely to adopt Kleros. Then we have one of a high customer pressure but low compliance. Then we have a high compliance pressure but low customer pressure. And finally, the holy grail is the quadrant where you have a high compliance requirement and a high customer requirement. So this is where we have identified a number of companies that are more likely to do pilots with Kleros, and this company as well. Our task now is to start to populate that quadrant with actual companies so we can contact them and offer the enterprise service. So this is the way we are thinking, and we are doing this exercise so we can better focus on our business development efforts. Well, all of the learning we had when discussing with other companies we addressed in the past. So now, well, it all went into that knowledge and into this matrix, which I think and I hope will make our BD efforts way more effective. So that's one of the things I have been working mostly on this week. And also the third big segment is in this public sector. So fintech and insurance are two verticals we are targeting in the private sector, and then we are targeting the public sector governments that could potentially use Kleros as it's being used now by Mendoza in Argentina, and we want this to be replicated in other municipalities and provincial governments, even national governments. So we are having a bunch of number of discussions with public authorities in Mexico, for example, and all places. So this is how we are thinking about the future in terms of enterprise adoption. So this has been a big focus for me during all this week. Besides different recruitment interviews we are doing for candidates in the bunch of positions we have. Okay, so with this, let me see. Maybe Marcos, you want to expand a bit more since we are into business development? Maybe speak a bit more about that.
Let me send Marcos the request.
Oh, by the way, I can already also say that we were this morning. I had a really very nice surprise. We were mentioned in this report by a fund called the Legal Tech Fund, which is an important venture, capital fund that invests only like in legal tech companies. That they released what they call a report called Early Stage Legal Tech Litigation Landscape. And in this report, they mention a bit about their thesis for the legal tech and the industry, and one of the companies that is mentioned there is Kleros, which is amazing because this is a really important place to be, and it's also great that it puts us a bit outside of the crypto bubble, and this creates lots of visibility from more traditional companies and governments. So this is a really, really interesting piece of news. And but Kleros is really well known in the non-crypto world. Lots of lawyers know about us, and lots of them follow us. So this is why we get to be mentioned in these places, and this is a really, really cool place to be. Marcos, are you there? Maybe not. Oh no, maybe William, you want to continue while Marcos fixes his stuff?
Sure. I mean, my research updates are similar to what I've said in past weeks, continuing to think about different dispute kit ideas that we can eventually implement in V2. Continuing some of the research I've been doing on soulbound token weighting. So these are these questions about like when you require some specific qualification in order to be selected as a juror in some court, and maybe if you have multiple relevant qualifications, how do you kind of weight them together? I'm going to be participating in a research residency next week, I guess, in Iceland that's organized by people, I think, a mix of people from different organizations. I think people from Protocol Labs and the Ethereum Foundation. And they're going to work on impact evaluation. So mostly about like public goods funding. But a lot of my sort of inspiration for the soulbound token weighting research that I'm doing draws from different work people have been doing about how to weight quadratic funding contributions. So I hope to like be able to like communicate with people that are doing cutting edge research on that, and sort of bring that back to the research I'm working on.
Maybe explain a bit more about weighting quadratic funding contribution. That's super interesting. Maybe people will be interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, so most of this is based on a series of papers by Glenn Weil and a couple of his collaborators. So specifically, there is a very technical paper, I think that's called Beyond Collusion Resistance, that's co-authored by Glenn Weil, Joe Miller, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but there's a third co-author. The idea is that with quadratic funding, you give more weight to people versus if people just like you have like basically you have some kind of like matching grant where people put in money and then their grant is matched by like a government agency or some kind of like philanthropic agency, and like a classic design would be just okay, dollar for dollar is matched, euro for euro, whatever, and then the idea of quadratic funding is that one, you give sort of like disproportionately less and less weight to each marginal dollar from the same individual, so that having lots of people is advantageous to getting a bigger grant. And then there's some specific mathematical theorems that say that if you like buy credits to like vote on things and you like put in $1 and that's put towards a matching grant, that like you can prove that the marginal utility you get by what the matching grants produce causes you to be honest in like equilibrium because you picked a quadratic mechanism versus something else. So quadratic mechanism here being that like basically each person's weight in the matching grant is like square rooted. You sum up all of their their square rooted sort of weights, and then you take the square. And that particular formula has like special properties. But it has been realized that, looking further into this, that it's like, okay, great, I'm weighting individual humans more. But a lot of the reason that you might want to do that is because you want to have kind of a wisdom of the crowds, where diverse groups of people bring their different experiences about what they think should be given matching grants, and you kind of put that together, and because you have a bunch of different points of view, you get better outcomes. So this is very similar to the kind of like reasoning that one might think in Kleros. If we have a diverse panel of jurors, you might put their views together and get like a higher output answers because of this sort of diversity of inputs. And then,
yeah, and the goal is no, you continue. Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, like, just to wrap up the spiel, like this soulbound token weighting idea tries to get at that. And now you sort of see who's diverse, like what groups people belong to, and how much those groups overlap by what soulbound tokens they have. And then you have a weighting function that discounts you, like, you have like a big group of people, but maybe you all have very similar soulbound tokens. So that's not weighted as much as if you had like groups of people with like different social backgrounds.
And this is the goal is to have like a better representation of the intensity of preferences. What would be the interest of the soulbound tokens then? And the diversity requirements.
I mean, it depends a little bit on your point of view, whether you're like a contributor to one of these programs, whether you're like the agency running the matching grants. If you're running the agency running the matching grants, you're a philanthropist and you're giving out money, you presumably like want to give money to good projects. And I mean, this is sort of the idea of the research residency that I'm going to be participating in. How do you design like mechanisms that pick out the right projects that deserve subsidies, in a decentralized way, or just in general, given the sort of like partial information you might have, and the limitations of running a mechanism like this, So if you want like good outputs, you want like good projects to get subsidies, you want to draw from the wisdom of the crowd. You want the best information from the crowd possible to be converted into like the best projects.
Cool. Well, I'm very jealous they're going to be there with all of these geniuses discussing those topics. So yeah, great about that. Good luck in Iceland. Let's go to Marcos on business development. Yeah.
Yes. Hey, good afternoon. Sorry, I wasn't speaking before. I was waiting for the approval to speak. But well, some BD updates. This week we had a call with some people related to the Mexican government. This is something Federico already mentioned, but well, we were part of that. And based on that, we start working on some documentation for these, let's say, like government entities. We've been working in a one-pager and some videos that should be useful for them to better understand how Kleros works, how we have been working with the government entities in Argentina and well, everything related to that. Then last week we sent the
Let me just add something to the Mexico thing, so
Yeah, sure.
because not everyone knows. So Mexico is a bit special to Kleros because a number of reasons. That's the first country where like the dispute resolution, decision made by a Kleros court was accepted as valid by a state court. That happened in Jalisco, in city of Guadalajara, and it was like a very big milestone in the sense of combining the world of blockchain with the real world. This happened a few years ago already. Last year, the Mexican Congress passed a law about innovation in dispute resolution, and it mentions decentralized justice as a valid method of arbitration in Mexico. So this means that decisions made by Kleros under certain conditions can be binding under Mexican law, which creates lots of interest in companies wanting to use alternative dispute resolution methods. Well, because it's cheaper, it's faster, avoids having to go to state courts, which is very expensive and slow, and sometimes frustrating. And this also comes at a very special moment in the Mexican politics, I would say, which is like a very big judicial reform that they have been doing that has pushed many companies to try to seek solutions, like private solutions for a context where they see this as a more trusted way to solve their disputes with customers than having to go to courts. So it's a bunch of different things that kind of converged in this very big interest for the use of Kleros. And yeah, so worth mentioning this context so you know what is the situation in which we are having these conversations with the Mexican actors. Yeah, Marcos, you can continue now.
Well, thanks. Well, besides what we have been working with Mexico and the documentation, last week we sent the monthly summary to MedLife, and we too had a call for feedback. It was a very useful call. Then last week, 2 lemon cases were resolved too. And well, another thing related to government entities, but in Argentina, this Friday we are going to have a new call with Junin. I think I already mentioned this before, but it's a jurisdiction that want to replicate what we did in Mendoza in their jurisdiction. Actually, we already resolved a pilot case, and well, we are going to have a new call to tell them more in detail how it worked, the justifications from our jurors, and well, that kind of things.
Yeah, so the template that we put in place in Mendoza for using for neighborhood disputes and consumer disputes, it's actually a good template to start replicating different regions. So first Argentina, because the law is the same, but then in other situations, in other contexts of jurisdiction, like Mexico, as I mentioned. So I mean that is working really, really well, and we expect it to to scale in the future. Of course, as you can imagine, these are quite slow processes because this requires lots of explaining, lots of meetings. So these are really sensitive processes in good governance of municipalities, countries. So slow, but the fact that this is already working in some jurisdictions make it like way easier than what it was when we were starting. So that's really bullish. And also we get support, from big institutions. I mean, the United Nations Commission on Trade and Development mentioned in this report, Kleros. This was, I think, 1 year ago, and they mentioned Kleros as one of the future technologies for the consumer disputes, and this combined with what happened today about the legal tech fund, mentioning Kleros as one of the key projects in the litigation industry. So these are number of things that are like create credibility and legitimacy for Kleros to be adopted in this government and enterprise setting. So those are really good things that I guess in some way they are like have a good feedback loop between them, because you have a pilot, and then in some enterprise or government, and then this has a visibility, and then that visibility brings other people who want to try the same thing, and then you have more pilots and more visibility, and this is kind of something that feeds into itself and brings more and more adoption. So that's great. I mean, it took us a long time to put this wheel into place, but now that it seems to be working, that's awesome. So yeah, Marcos, anything else you want to mention?
No, that's all. Besides that, some general conversations with leads, but that's all.
Awesome, thank you. Jim.
Well, I think just make some reminders that we distributed the rewards of the shelling game that we did at DAPCon a couple of weeks ago, and we are now capturing the addresses of the people that participated on UTC. And for the ones that didn't hear, like this game was created to kind of simulate the experience of being a Kleros juror, but and also to work as an icebreaker for people at conferences, so they need to scan other people's QR codes. They get a question that doesn't have like a very objective answer, and they need to think like how other people will think about this question and select which option they think will be the most popular. And that's how there's this shelling point principle, that this shelling point that is created when you try to answer the question. And we are distributing some PMK rewards for people that participated. So we will be having some new jurors coming to the court. I think last week and early this week, we already had some people staking for the first time. And well, another thing that I'd like to mention is that we talked about this in the previous call, that there is a very controversial dispute resolution question on prediction markets the last couple of weeks about Zelensky, if he wore a suit or not. And the people at Seer, the prediction market, they created a market about that, kind of simulating the one in Polymarket, and created a dispute which goes to Kleros about this. And the jurors voted, and it's still on the appeal period, but the last time I checked, the yes option was winning. And I think one of the interesting parts about this is that we have since Kleros has an appeal system, then at every step the jurors are expected to vote according to the correct answer that will be in the next appeal phase. So I think in this case, I think most jurors voted on the yes option, and I think it I saw the evidences. I also helped create one of the evidences. I think it's very nice that you can see the arguments of both parts, which some other solutions might not have like very clearly. And in our case, it's all in the case, and it's uploaded on IPFS. So, well, I think it's an interesting experiment, and I hope we do more of this if there are other controversial cases. And there is currently a boom in prediction markets, and some are deciding which oracles to use. So this case will help us promote our services.
Thank you, Eugene. Yeah, I mean, we are also, well, researching a bit on different uses of future key. I mean, I have been following prediction markets and future key for like 10 years now, more than 10 years, I would say, even before they were in crypto. There is a famous post, well, famous for me at least, that I published explaining prediction markets. I guess maybe it was 9 or 10 years ago, and in that well, blog post, it's online. You can check it. I mean, you can fact check me. I mentioned, that well, prediction markets, how you can use to predict, like election results and all that you already know, and then I mentioned a governance methodology based on prediction markets that was called Future Key. And in that blog post, I said, okay, next month there's news that there's going to be like a new prediction market to be launched called Augur. So this is, imagine how early all of this was. It was pre-Augur. That was Augur agnosis were the first prediction markets that existed in crypto. So I mean, that's how old I am, for you to know. So you have research with those topics. Then I also participated in a podcast with our partners from SitGov about the use of AI in governance. I spoke a bit of that about Kleros, how we are using or experimenting more than using for now with agents as jurors, and then we also discussed a number of more generic use cases of AI in DAO governance, and how we can use AI to, I mean, sometimes automate processes, sometimes improve the proposals, drafting, and yeah. And I guess the question that was floating around at the end was, okay, yeah, you have the DAOs and you have a governance process, and do we want this to become like governed by AI, and like AI participating in the proposals and taking care of most of the process? I mean, could I have one of the big things of the problems that DAO governance has is lack of participation. People sometimes they don't vote, they don't care, and one of the solutions we could implement is, okay, you can have your AI agent represent you on the governance of different DAOs where you belong, and then well, that agent could take your preferences from, well, your different past votes, or your even you. I mean, there is a Yuval Harari in Homo Deus imagines the future of democracy, where you have your AI that knows your email, knows your social media accounts, know everything about you, and then based on that, it can like predict where you would stand in different proposals that would happen in the government. It kind of can predict who you would vote. And then, this means that you don't have to spend that much time, and you can be somewhat represented by your agent in the way that you are like now a bit represented by your representative in Congress, right? You vote for someone that represents your opinions, and then, well, what if you can have like an AI represent you, and this is your agent that will represent you? So, and a bit the question is, so do we want this? Do we want just to delegate our citizenship to some AI, which is more comfortable, and so we can just spend time, playing FIFA at the PlayStation, or, I mean, or doing whatever we want to do? I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe would we lose control over the process? Would this makes us, I mean, a bit worse citizens, worse persons? There is certainly a level of like education that comes with being a citizen or a participant in a governance system, and maybe if we just give this into an agent, this would be like a, I mean, it would diminish us as citizens, which is, by the way, why the ancient Athenians didn't like the idea of representation. That's why they wanted actually citizens to participate in person in the assembly and also in the courts, because they have the idea that participation was a way to improve people. I mean, to improve humans, citizens. I guess that is one of the big problems or big challenges we will have in the age of AI. Not only in DAOs, of course, but generally speaking in most organizations. And I don't know, William, what do you think of that? I mean, having us represented by AI agents that know everything about us, our preferences, and what we would think about politics, and then just, I mean, we can just not worry anymore.
I mean, it's like if they really can represent exactly my thoughts and how I would react, that's in some sense it's an extension of myself, right? Like,
I mean, compared to, I mean, not participating at all, maybe, but I mean, don't we lose a part of our sense of belonging to a community if we only have our AIs speaking to each other? I don't know. It's a question. I don't have an answer for this.
yeah, I mean, like maybe the bigger problem is not that the AI isn't like governing well. It's that I'm not growing and evolving by the process of having participated.
Right, right. Well, there is all of these discussions that we had yesterday. I mean, I guess at the end, one of the big questions we had was, okay, but I just my AI. I mean, does my AI also deserve like a representation? Is it not like a person as well? And maybe shouldn't my AI have the right to vote? And then I mean, that could bring us into the um, bigger question of if AIs have rights, uh, and yeah, I mean, and if they have rights, what rights they have, and if they have right to vote, and if they have, should that the right be equal to humans or no? One sometimes when I think about this, I have this precedent that was called the Controversia de Valladolid that happened in the 16th century in Spain, in the city of Valladolid. And the question was about the people, I mean, who were born in America, the Aborigines and indigenous people. Question was, okay, do they have souls? And if they have souls, do they what rights they have? I mean, can we enslave them? Can we kill them or not? So kind of some of the questions that we have now and we will have in the future is these type of discussions that they used to have with the indigenous people from America, and are they Christians or no, and what uh, I mean, that's quite interesting that soulbound tokens have reference to souls, interestingly. So, well, this is the next question that we will probably have in the future. I mean, I don't want to go through this rabbit hole now, but these were some of the issues that were raised in this podcast that we did yesterday. Not podcast, it was a X Spaces with the SitGov people. Okay, do you have anything else, Jean, for today?
I'd just like to mention the Primavera di Filippi talk that was a bit related to that about stations and maybe one of these agents that can vote on DAOs can be something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean that is interesting. So I mentioned in the past that when I was at Singularity in 2016, I had this conversation. Can you hear me? You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah. No, I was saying that. Yeah, I had this discussion with my AI professor Neil Jacobstein about how do you stop AI that is like misbehaving in the sense of being misaligned and producing like bad decisions, bad situations. And it's already deployed up there. And I mean, as you very well know from the fact of having seen Space Odyssey, HAL, I'm afraid I cannot do that. AIs, when you give them a task, they will not want to be disabled, because being disabled would be bad for them accomplishing that task, which can create very bad alignment processes. And then one of the discussions I had in 2016 was, okay, can we use some version of like a Kleros, a court that decides whether some AI is actually misbehaving, and is actually becoming misaligned? And then if the jury votes, yes, it's being misaligned, I mean, you can just, press a kill switch, and that kills the process, and the AI dies. And then it's kind of a way to control AIs that are potentially misaligned in the early stages of the misalignment, so you don't have the problem of like taking over the world. So obviously, 2016, this was really like science fiction stuff, but now this is starting to become a bit more realistic, in the sense that more agents are around, and we have already seen instances of misalignment, very big instances of misalignment, not on chain yet, but like, yes, in centralized platforms. In my talk at HCC, I mentioned about Facebook, and they had this algorithm to decide what they would put in the feed of people, what information they would send them. And what they tried to optimize was for increasing the engagement of people with the posts. And then the algorithm discovered that, the best way to maximize engagement is to send content that generates moral outrage against the other side of against the others, let's say. And so the algorithm started sending that type of information, and this resulted in a really, really big polarization in lots of societies. And it was not that Facebook intended to create societies being more polarized, and just that, the goal that they were trying to optimize engagement, the way to do it was through some mean that was a lot of very bad situations. So this is a kind of an example of how an AI can be misaligned. And so the thing is how you do, in this case, in the end, you have the management of Facebook that controls the algorithm centrally, and they can just disable it if they think it's not working correctly. Imagine this is like a decentralized social media platform where there's no like a centralized agent that can decide to do that. You would need a process to actually do that, and the process is going to be decentralized. And then you will come into situations where you will want to, you have to see, well, who should make this decision, and then what is the mechanism for the decision to be made. And well, kind of a court can be a good mechanism for this. Okay, so let's see, Primavera de Filippi, who is one of the big scholars in the world of legal innovation and blockchain. She wrote this very famous book with Aaron Wright, Blockchain and the Law, where she, well, I'm not going to explain the book here. Do read it because it's great. But she was in this presentation, and she said, okay, look, you want the agent to be controlled by a DAO, and that DAO decide whether that agent should be accepted or should be like disabled. And then that DAO could have jury deciding that. And this jury could be using, of course, Kleros, and through maybe an implementation of, what our product of SafeSnap for DAO governance. So yeah, so basically it's a simple decision about whether the DAO should be, the agent should be enabled or disabled, or maybe should change the algorithm that is guiding it if we see this is misaligned. So it was it's still really, really speculative. But you could like, in some way, you could see this as kind of a something working inside a body, like organism. You have each of these agents. You can see this as like a cell in the body, and then that cell is controlled by some process, and then if that cell becomes it starts misbehaving, kind of, I mean, the obvious analogy would be becomes like cancer, and then this can be like the cell would self kill, or would be killed by the DAO that controls it. I know it sounds a bit strange now, but it's maybe not going to be so strange in a few years, I think. So yeah, I mean, those are the I discussion with the Primavera if we can make some little test of how Kleros would work in this type of setting. But yeah, it's going to be something experimental for sure. And I mean, but I think it's going to go in the right direction of where technology is going in terms of AI alignment. So as you see, we go from solving neighborhood disputes in Argentina to very high level, how to kill a misbehaving potential Skynet process. So this is our everyday life in Kleros. I am not going to lie to you. That was it, Jean. That's what you wanted me to explain.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And well, just
Okay.
make the
Yeah.
like the usual reminders that we have the APY for staking is around 23%, and it helps the courts to have more economic security, especially now that the token is going up, and we have more prediction markets to secure. It's important that we have more stakers. And another thing is that we have the Kleros Scout program. Today, Fortunato is not here. Probably next week we can talk more about the changes that we are making on the Kleros Scout rewards. And so there's rewards for making submissions to these lists that they're now being used by Etherscan, by Block Scout, by OtterScan, which is a open source block explorer, and there are derivatives from different networks. And also we have a MetaMask Snap that uses this data, and it gets more complete over time. Yeah, this is it from my side.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it for today, right, guys? Well, thank you all for coming, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Everybody.